Hello, and welcome to my Modlist showcase, where I give an overview and opinion on mod lists to help find the right one for you. This time, we're looking at Life in the Ruins, released for Fallout 4 and created by Whiskey Tango Fox. The version I've been playing on is version 1.1.2, released on the 11th of March 2022. You can check on the Modlist Discord linked below for any changes and updates. Firstly, what is Life in the Ruins? The description reads, a Fallout 4 mod list for a survival playthrough without the grind, based on Lunar Fallout Overhaul and Sim Settlements 2, designed to deepen and enhance the existing game without straying too far from the vanilla aesthetic. Also, as a heads up, in the footage you'll see during this video, if there's any weirdly placed UI stuff, it's because of my ultra-wide monitor, which I'll address later in the video. Life in the Ruins is available to download from the Wabberjack Modlist installer. While I won't cover the specifics of the installation in this video, the installation was incredibly easy, with clear instructions provided. You can follow along with my Wabberjack explanation guide video on my channel and linked below. With over 400 mods, this list totals to around 100 GB, and once installed, the list requires minimal tweaks to get up and running. Now for what the mod list adds. For this showcase, I'll be showing clips taken throughout my current playthrough. I've spent plenty of time with this list, and so I have a good grasp on what it's like to play. Probably the first thing you'll notice with this list is how overgrown everything looks. Trees are full of leaves, the grass is dense, and many textures have hints of moss. If you're someone who really dislikes going against the vanilla look, then sure, this won't be for you. But for me personally, I found it offers a refreshing new colour palette to the game that doesn't go too overboard. The mods of Forest and True Grass add the most changes to foliage. Obviously they stray away from the dead feeling of the base game, but as nature would likely regrow in an actual post-apocalypse, I think it's a welcome change. As for textures, almost every texture in the game has been updated and improved upon. As said before, many textures add to the overgrown feeling, with more rust and greenery growing on them. Fallout HD Overhaul provides the base for most textures, which is one of the best looking texture mods to date, and doesn't completely tank your FPS. As for the weather, the list uses True Storms, which is one of the oldest Fallout 4 weather lists, yet is still popular for a good reason. As for the EMB, this list uses True Sight EMB, which has been made to best fit the lighting and weather mods this list adds. When it comes to performance, I was really impressed with how well this list runs considering how dense the forests are. I managed to hold an almost consistent 60 FPS no matter where I was, which for Fallout 4 is saying something. By default, this list uses Dynamic Performance Tuner, which basically adjusts your shadow draw distance on the go to help maintain a consistent FPS. Now most of the time it works as intended, but sometimes it will overcompensate and make shadows render right in front of you, but luckily you can make some small tweaks in the mod's ini file which sorts the problem out. These are the specs I ran the list on, and while I know it's high end, I play at 1440p ultra-wide, which usually tanks the performance. A strong focus with this list is balance, with the main goal of enhancing survival mode without making everything a slog to get through. The Lunar Fallout Overhaul lays the groundwork for this list, which could get a video all on its own, but to summarise some of the key points, armour and weapons have been tweaked to be more balanced, perks have been overhauled and combined with the Creative Perk Plus mod to provide more fair and interesting effects, meaning focusing on a specific build feels all the more rewarding. It's more important to find clean food and water, and there's now different levels of quality for chems. Para armour is now more durable, but costs more perks and items to maintain. A vast amount of creatures and NPCs have had their health and abilities tweaked to better represent their power. And finally, survival changes make the wasteland more ruthless. For example, ammo and chems are rare, radiation is more dangerous, and many items weigh more. There's even an optional hardcore patch, which makes useful items even rarer and levelling up slower paced, though this can be switched off if you so wish. And all this only scratches the surface of what the mod changes, so I recommend giving it a look on the mod page if you're interested. And speaking of game-changing mods, Sim Settlements 2 is also included, which again, I can't cover all in this video, as there's just so much added with this mod that it's like an entire DLC, so I'll just say it vastly overhauls settlement building, with new items, buildings, quests, NPCs and more. Much of the changes from Lunar Fallout Overhaul carry over into the combat, where now it's more deadly, and it's all the more important to land your shots. The damage your weapon deals is now doubled if playing on survival, and the same goes for enemies, which means fights are over faster, and using cover is so much more crucial. And working alongside this, customizing your weapons is equally important, as there's now a greater variation between ammo types, barrels, and so on. Also, NPCs are smarter, meaning they will flank, take cover, and pick up better weapons more often. Then there's mods like Unique NPCs and Super Mutant Redux, which not only adds variation to enemy appearances, but also their abilities, health, and damage. So overall, this list is definitely a lot harder than vanilla, yet is incredibly satisfying with how balanced it is, meaning deaths don't feel unfair, and you can easily create overpowered builds. Life in the Ruins is very selective with its quest mods, meaning they have to fit naturally into the world, and come with well-written dialogue, and not include game-breaking items and mechanics. As mentioned before, Sim Settlements 2 is included, which provides one of the best and most polished modded quests available. Another large quest mod added is the Bleachers, which adds in a new district to Diamond City with its own NPCs, quests, workshop items, and a new player home. Then there's Tales of the Commonwealth, which is one of my favourite quest mods out there. The mod adds a ton of new NPCs, companions, and quests all about the world, and instead of focusing on just one main quest line, the mod adds a lot of little ones that just adds to the personality of the emptier parts of the wasteland. As for changes to the world space, mods have been included to emphasise the feeling of the post-apocalypse. For example, Inside Jobs opens up many of the boarded houses, and so you have more areas to explore. And Rizio's location pack scatters a number of smaller details into the world, like more rundown vehicles and forgotten campsites, which makes the 200-year jump into the future feel more believable. As this list focuses on balance, there's not been a plethora of new weapons added, as the main goal is making the vanilla ones as balanced, varied, and customizable as possible. Now I, like many others, enjoy there to be a huge variety in weapons, so I was a little skeptical at first. However, this list surprised me with just how better the weapons felt. On top of the huge amount of weapon changes and tweaks, mods like Vanilla Unique Weapons Remastered changed the look and effect of almost all the unique weapons in the world, making them feel brand new to the game. And on top of this, there's still a decent number of new weapons included, with new shotguns, rifles, crossbows, melee weapons, and more, all of which balanced and fitting into the lore. As for armours, hundreds of new clothing and armour pieces have been added through mods such as Ellie's Armour Compendium and Grease Rat Garbs, which mostly come with a post-apocalyptic theme that blends naturally into the world and provides a ton of variety for your character. A huge amount of new tracks have been added, both to the game soundtrack and the radios on your Pip-Boy. From the ones I've heard, they all seem to fit into the Fallout tone, but of course everyone has a different preference to music. Also, the vast majority of the ambient audio has been modified, with mods like Lush Ambience and Radiant Birds, and the cracking sound of gunfire sounds all the more realistic with Commonwealth Gunfire Overhaul. Have a listen for yourself. For some other notable changes with this list, the Locky Bastard mod lets you try and bypass locks by shooting them, but with running the risk of breaking the lock. Mods like Fall UI, Def UI, and Immersive HUD change up the UI to look better and display more information, and honestly I've used these mods for so long that I can't even remember what the UI looked like without them. Complex vendors means vendors will only buy and sell items related to their profession, and followers are more useful and easier to control, with mods like Companion Whistle and Companion Tracker. And finally, NPC faces have been improved to provide high quality versions of their vanilla looks. Now for some additions to the list, but first I must stress, any changes you make to the list has nothing to do with the Modlist author. You should only do so if you have an understanding of modding and accept that any consequences are yours to deal with. So firstly, I think it's worth noting that on the list's Discord, there's a channel for people to ask about adding mods, and so it's worth looking on there if you have any questions. Some of the most popular mods people want to add are new weapons, and the list authors stated that any added weapons have a high chance of messing with the game balance, as they won't be made to fit with the Lunar Fallout overhaul, so add them at your own risk. I've also seen people asking about the extended dialogue interface and silent protagonist, and basically they can be added, but you'll need to find patches for all the mods which include new dialogue. Also, if you use ultrawide like me, you'll need the TrueB9 ultrawide mod, as well as any other ultrawide patches for the included mods. There were a few times where I found the UI to be positioned in strange places, but for the most part the patches did the job. Some Fallout 4 mod lists focus on adding as much to the game as they can, whereas some polish up the vanilla game to provide a better but familiar experience. And I'd say Life in the Ruins has the best of both worlds. There's new quests, NPCs, weapons and so on, yet the main focus is on balancing the game and providing more varied playstyles. In Fallout games, I've always been an advocate for survival mode, your person with no gear being dropped in the post-apocalypse, and so yeah, it should be pretty difficult to survive. And so I think this list can appeal to a lot of people. If you've not delved much into survival mode, or even Fallout 4 as a whole, this list provides a better and more balanced experience than the vanilla version. And if you're someone who wants more of a challenge, but doesn't want to commit to a mod list that's too hardcore with its survival, then this list will also be for you. Overall, this list is a ton of fun, and really makes me appreciate the world of Fallout 4, all while providing new stuff and better gameplay variation, and I'll be sure to play this list for a long old while. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like, as it helps the channel grow. I also have a Twitch, which I plan on streaming on sometimes, and a Discord if you want to talk about mod stuff or anything else. Other than that, big thank you to my Patreon supporters, Emperador Wolf, Libby DVR, Jacob Amino, Sparkadom, Jack Ma, Michael Eric, and Christian Howell. You're such a huge help to me because, you know, YouTube don't give me barely anything for this, so thank you so much. And farewell.